You're listening to the Paul Carroll Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Johnny Cash Friday. This is hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us today. We've got a great lineup of Johnny Cash music coming your way for the next hour. And it's gospel-centered because it's Good Friday. Happy Easter to everybody out there. Joining us now for his impression of the session, we have State Representative John Payton from District 64. John, welcome back to the program, sir.
Well, good Friday afternoon, Paul. Thanks for having me and for all you do.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate what you did down there at the session. I'd love to talk.
Hey, by the way, I want to schedule all my interviews for Johnny Cash Fridays, and okay. I love the gospel songs and the praise God for the Resurrection Sunday.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. I always love. Matter of fact, in the library there. And I'll play these gospel songs, obviously, throughout the year. I don't only reserve them for Good Friday. But I have all of those labeled Easter. So on Good Friday, I know I'm like, okay, well, these are my Johnny Cash songs today, because it's just, and I love Johnny Cash Friday on Good Friday. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I've been listening into the first hour, and love your testimony there in the last 30 minutes. And Austin McCullen done a great job.
He did. He really did. I mean, he's got a great. I feel like he's got a great perspective on things. Feel free, take as long as you want or short as you want. But generally, what was your impression of the session down there?
Well, generally, I'd say it could have been worse. It's a missed opportunity, But we found ourselves as conservatives still on the defense instead of being on the offense, and trying to fight the fuel tax and the internet tax. So I guess the way I'd sum it up is a missed opportunity.
A missed opportunity. Yeah, I mean, we've heard something similar from that we had an opportunity. I think it might have been Dan Sullivan that talked about the opportunity that we had. We were playing defense on things you think we wouldn't be playing defense on.
Exactly. I mean, instead of proactively reducing government impact on our lives, I found myself fighting new and increased taxes and fees, new and increased regulation. So,
one of those was
liberty is still in jeopardy.
Yeah, it is, because I mean, when government just continues to grow unchecked, I mean, it's just that our freedoms and liberties contract. Talk about the tire tax. I know we had you on. I mean, that was one of the bills that you were really outspoken against. At one point, you sounded the ballot, which is a legislative maneuver, procedural maneuver, and actually defeated that bill that increased taxes on tires, created a new tax on tires. But then, of course, they brought it back. They whipped up enough votes to get it through. That's one example.
Well, and of course, the tire tax on used tires, they're calling it a rim fee. But the bottom line is it created a lot of new regulation trying to track those tires from cradle to grave that nobody really has a grasp on what it's going to cost. And worse than that, being in the automobile business all my life, I see it as destroying the supply chain that moves those tires from the first owner to the second and third owner. And, it's all done in the name of recycling, but the best way to recycle a tire is to put it on another automobile and wear it out. Many times, the tires have lots of life left, and if the regulations that we impose, not just the tax, but the regulation destroys that supply chain, good tires are going to be going to the recycling centers instead of being worn out. And so I think it compounds the problem they're trying to solve. Of course, it's more money out of the people's pockets, and who knows if it'll be enough to cover the expense of tracking them from cradle to grave. The Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality is going to be saddled with that job, but, they're going to have to put boots on the street, so to speak, to try to rein in everybody that's jockeying used tires around.
Why do you think Arkansans elected so many Republicans over the last few election cycles and changed, or at least, we thought changed the political landscape of this state? Why are Republicans appealing to people in Arkansas?
Well, I mean, I think the party platform is great. I think people truly believed that by electing Republicans that we would achieve the goals that are stated in the platform. And I believe the people of Arkansas definitely relate closer to the Republican platform than the Democrat. But the problem is, we can't paint everything with such a broad brush, whether it's Democrat or Republican or the legislature. We need to look at our representatives and our senators and our governor individually and decide, who's the best candidate and get the right people in there. Throwing a lot of freshmen at it for the last 3 election cycles has not proven to give us a majority of liberty-loving conservatives. I think I have a lot of good people down there. I was really impressed by Austin McCullen and a couple of the other freshmen, but it just doesn't seem like we get a majority of people that are really willing to stand shoulder to shoulder and fight the growth in government, the overregulation. And, it's just like during that first hour when you're talking to Austin and he brought up the military retirement tax cut and how it was tied to other tax increases. I mean, it's a shell game. And they play this shell game and they throw out the term revenue neutral. Well, you can't have a tax cut and it be revenue neutral. That's an oxymoron. If you're going to dangle a carrot out there and say, here, we got the tax cut, but in order to pay for it, we're going to raise taxes over here. I mean, to me, that's just deceiving people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We're talking with State Representative John Payton. The reason I asked that question about, what is appealing, and you mentioned the platform, and I just know, are there small special interest groups that wanted the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality to be expanded to supposedly handle whatever problem they have? Yeah, sure there were. But did a majority of Arkansans go and elect Republicans in all these districts and the governorship? Was that a big issue? What was the issue? Oh, my gosh, we've got to have this bill to raise our taxes on tires. And, the answer is no. That's what I'm getting at I don't know if some of these people who are running with an R next to their name actually get what the people are sick and tired of. Now, maybe they do, and they're just, using the Republican brand to acquire power. I'm sure that's possible, but I think some of them just don't really understand why the people of Arkansas have been voting the way they have been voting.
Well, and of course, I still look at it from a voter's view. I mean, I grew up in Cleveland County, Arkansas, and I'm been elected now. I'm serving in my 3rd term. I've been at it a little over 4 years. But I still look at it from the voter's view. I know why I voted for Republicans and why I put them in there. And I'll have to say, being down there with them every day, there's several that I'm disappointed in. But government has been out of control for some time. I believe when President Obama got elected and pushed the Affordable Care Act through, it was never more clear that government was out of control. And so I think people tried to make an adjustment and push back, and the Republican Party, which is not the elected officials, but the people back home that go to the county committee meetings and work the polls and help candidates get elected, knock doors, and make contributions. I mean, I just feel like we let them down. That's why I said it's a missed opportunity. To see people work so hard to elect the Republican candidates, and then the Republican candidates, in many cases, get down there and don't act that much different from their Democrat predecessors. Cleveland County, where I grew up, has been historically Democrat, and very conservative thinking people, but had always voted Democrat. And when they made that change in the 2010-2012 election cycle, they got very involved, and they looked at the party platforms, and they realized that the Republican Party platform represented their ideals and their principles. But there are other districts in Arkansas that have been historically Republican. And I think there's been some people who had more Democrat-leaning ideals ran on the Republican ticket in those districts because to get elected in certain districts, you had to run on the Republican ticket, you know. So I think we're going through a growth pain, growing pains or something like that. But it's important as we evaluate 100 representatives in the House that we don't think that we need to throw all of them out, because I'll tell you, there's 25 or 30 that you can hang your hat on that are really true conservatives, and then there's another 15 or 20 that want to be, but they find themselves going with the flow, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah.
And then there's probably another 10 or 12 or so that, at heart, they're probably more Democrat than they are Republican.
Yeah, I certainly, I think that's the case. I'm glad you mentioned the folks that have been out there and been activists and how disappointed some of them might feel. I mean, folks who've been active in, let's say, local county committees, for decades. They've been trying to turn these blue counties red, and they finally succeeded. And you talk to them, and they're like, I did all of that work for this?
Right.
I mean,
and believe me, those of us that are down there are still fighting for the Republican platform and against the bloated government and the infringements on our liberties. We're just as disappointed as anybody back home. But you can't give up. I mean, you have to stay at it because you can see, even with a vast majority wearing the Republican label, we're still on the defense. We're still fighting to stop it from growing more. I'm proud that we beat the fuel tax and the internet tax, and they're going to have a task force on tax reform, and their big mantra is going to be all about revenue neutral. And we just can't let them get away with playing that shell game. Yeah,
they're going to have to cut spending, cut government. And do real tax reform. I mean, that would be the goal.
And one thing I've noticed in my time down there is you'll never get them to cut spending unless you cut the revenue. I mean, if the money's there, they're going to spend it. So, you've got to cut the revenue. Well, how do you cut the revenue? You come with tax cuts. But if you try to make it revenue neutral, you've accomplished nothing.
Yeah, the government's still the same size. That's really well said. State Representative John Payton, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Wow, that was quick. I sure appreciate you. And
it goes by fast.
It went by fast. But it's Easter Sunday. We need to realize freedom and liberty require sacrifice.
Hey.
So we got to quit auctioning off our freedom and liberty for security and money.
It's very well said. Representative John Payton, I appreciate it, sir. Happy Easter to you.
Same to you. Have a good week.
Yes, sir. Hey, folks.